Hi, Prescott, and welcome to another Prescott E-News Prescott Talk Show. My name's Glenn Martin, and I'm your host. And today I have a special guest, Harry Oberg, who is our former mayor of Prescott, and he is running for Supervisor District 1 for Yavapai County. Welcome, Harry.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I'm glad to be here.
Now, great. So thanks for taking the time and running over here real quick at the last minute. So Harry, for the folks that may not know you or, haven't been around for a while, kind of just give me a little synopsis of who you are and where you've been.
Well, I'm a longtime resident of Yavapai County. My dad got here in '29, and he brought me here in '49. He was working on a ranch in Colorado. Graduated from Prescott High School in 1965. In '67, I went into the military, spent 2 tours in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot. Eventually completing 33 years of military service, retiring at the rank of colonel on active duty and brigadier general in the Army National Guard. And like you said, I also served as mayor here for 2 years.
Great. So long-time resident, long-time resume here. Harry, I was on my way over and I couldn't help but see the smoke over Thumb Butte. And that's kind of something I want to bring out. You've always been an advocate for forest management. Can you kind of hit on that a little bit, especially with the fires in California?
Well, basically back when I was mayor, I was working with a state forester at the time. And we were trying to come up with ways to ensure that if we did get a fire started in the forest, that it wouldn't come into the Prescott area. And most of our winds are from the south-southwest, so that's the area that we were looking at primarily to put in fire breaks, forest thinning operations, some prescribed burns also. And obviously I think that's what you have to do, and unfortunately they haven't done those same things in California. They've allowed a tremendous amount of fuel to build up. And one of the things that the Forest Service told me was that when you get a tremendous amount of fuel load on the ground, when that burns, it actually sterilizes the ground and makes it much harder for trees to come back and bulbs. So I think California is going to be suffering from this for a long time. The other thing, of course, was to look and see if we could possibly start a biomass industry here. We have a tremendous amount of overburden, and it can be valuable. A lot of it can be used to make charcoal that can be used in various operations. Primarily, I know that the South Koreans were looking at all that we could produce because they wanted to convert all their coal-fired electric generating stations to charcoal. And so they were willing to buy anything that we could produce.
Well, here in Northern California, boy, did I slip, huh?
Yeah.
Here in Northern Arizona, a lot of us have pellet stoves.
Yes.
And I think, when I look at the overburden being burned out here in Prescott, even sometimes smoky days, I wish we would be able to take that and make pellets out of it, and for the folks to keep themselves warm. There's a lot of recycle value here in our area.
Yeah.
Do you know, is that the projects that you worked on when you were mayor, are they still going on right now today? Or?
Well, I think it kind of lapsed when that particular forest manager left. There's a new guy, and obviously if I become the supervisor for District 1, I'm going to be working with him to see what we can do to re-energize that program. I do know that there's some new technologies out that might be useful to look at. The ones that I've seen right now is basically consuming what's out there without creating any smoke. They have a special way of doing that now. But obviously, if we can get some value out of it, I'd like to try and do that.
Yeah, and safety as well.
Yeah. Well, it could be jobs too.
Yeah, jobs. And our biggest threat in Prescott, is it not fire?
Yes.
We don't have earthquakes, we don't have tornadoes. No. We have a few microbursts, but fire is definitely something. Whenever we hear about, we smell smoke or we look, see the
we're seeing where it's
flames.
coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Harry. And another thing I wanted to bring up is I always bring up the Second Amendment. And just want to make sure, that the folks, again, watching who may not have seen you before, know where you stand on the Second Amendment and where you stand on the sanctuary status of Yavapai County as a Second Amendment.
Well, I guess maybe to start from the beginning, I think I joined the NRA as a life member in early 70s. And I made both of my boys life members, and I think it's a very important organization that protects our Second Amendment. I've also felt that if the Second Amendment goes, the First will be right behind it.
Absolutely.
And obviously, I think it's one of the amendments that we have that makes government maybe start to look at being more responsible. Because obviously, if you get rid of the First and the Second, I think this country's going to be in dire straits.
Right.
As far as the sanctuary city or sanctuary county proclamation, I totally agree with it. I think it's important that people realize this was basically a sense of the board of directors, just like you have things passed at the national level in the Congress, that is a sense of the Congress, saying what they feel about a particular situation. It doesn't prohibit the law enforcement from doing what they have to. Obviously, I'm very concerned about red flag laws. I think red flag laws are basically unconstitutional. Many of them are going to be laws that would be passed that would be against the Second Amendment and our rights to keep and bear arms. And I think the Supreme Court has been very clear on that. And I think there's sufficient laws on the books right now to manage whatever is going on with people with weapons, particularly people that probably shouldn't have them.
Right.
Obviously, if you have people that have been reported to have mental issues and difficulties, and they're not even being watched or looked at or evaluated, shame on us.
And that's so true. I was just watching a conference with the police chief of Chicago, and he brought out a point that I guess there was, talking about the shootings over the weekend, which are horrendous every weekend. But he brought out a point that one of the shooters of this past weekend is a 7-time convicted felon who should not have had a gun, and went out and shot 6 people over the weekend. And so we have these laws, but a lot of places just don't enforce those laws. We allow these people who shouldn't be walking around our communities to walk our communities and be armed. And how do you explain to a family who just lost a loved one to a shooting about this guy being a career criminal?
Yes.
And is walking the streets? How do the politicians explain that? I guess would be a better question. I don't think they can either. No. And it's again, it's up to us. It's up to the people to tell the politicians we're a republic, and we're supposed to be able to have a representative government that listens to us. And when we see these things, we have to speak out.
Well, again, I think it goes right back to the voter. Mm-hmm. The voter has to say, who do I want in office? Who's going to protect me? Who's going to follow the laws? We are a nation of laws. Mm-hmm. And if we're not willing to back them up and enforce them, then we're a nation without law. Right. And that's going to be a very dire situation for us. And so I just hope that people, when they go to the ballot, do their voting this year, go to the polls, that they look at who's going to be a candidate who's going to support basically safety and ensuring that we follow our laws.
And I'll follow that up with it all starts at our level, at the community level, and it moves up to LD1 and into our Senate and into the federal level. So it's important, and that's why I like to do these interviews with the community level here with the Board of Supervisors, mayors, and city council, because again, when we go out and vote, this is where it really affects us mostly in our pocketbook. And so I'm talking about our pocketbook a little bit, and I wanted to ask your opinion about Proposition 208. It's a tax for schools at the state level. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I've read into that, and I'm a little concerned about that. I think one of the things I'm concerned about is that we're always trying to pass a proposition or something that's going to be put into the Constitution that's going to be there probably forever. I can't remember reading sometime back the number of propositions that have been brought forward, and then when they were found to be probably problematic, how many of them were ever removed? Yeah. And the number is so minuscule, it's pathetic. So obviously, I don't think it's appropriate to start saying, well, we're going to classify you based on your income as having to pay more tax than anybody else. I think a lot of people, particularly in the higher tax brackets, are paying a tremendous amount now.
Yeah.
And
They pay most of the taxes.
and I think in the last few years, Governor Ducey has provided a tremendous amount of funding to schools. I know that the federal government has too. Obviously, we're doing it in our taxes here too, and we're looking at a budget override from the school districts here to continue getting, the taxes that they were getting, that those programs are not going to die. So obviously, I think we need to have better management in the schools. Obviously, when you do have pay raises, it goes to everybody. And even though they say it's going to be for the teachers, it's actually for the teachers and the administration and the superintendents. And, some of these superintendents are getting, six figures and over 500,000. And so, I'm not saying that they're not worth that, but obviously we're putting a lot of money into education, and I think it should be making sure that it goes into the classroom and benefits our students with the proper instruction.
And a lot of people that are watching the show, Harry, are on fixed incomes. We're mostly a retired community, and when I look at, the taxes coming at us from, PSPRS, the county, 18%, we have college, we have the schools. After a while, we just kind of, as the taxpayers, or as I call us, the ATMs, we start running out of money. Not that we can't, I know a lot of people may be struggling to keep their home, but a lot of the retired folks maybe can't go out and do dinner, twice a week, or they start cutting back on, their social life a little bit. Yeah. So it snowballs. And so while we're talking about propositions, how about 207? And I just happened to bring this. This is the marijuana initiative to make marijuana legal recreationally in Arizona. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I'm totally against it. I'm for no on 207. I've talked to a number of people that have lived in Colorado, and once they passed legalization there, they saw that it really created a lot of problems. I remember sometime back, Governor Hickenlooper said they wish they had never passed it. Mm-hmm. And right now, I think one of the things that you have to look at is for every dollar that you get in revenue, because that's one of the things they look at here is a tax. I think it's about a 16% tax on the sales. Somebody might say, well, that's a lot of money, but at the same time, what it creates in issues costs $4 for every dollar you get in revenue.
The services, the public services, hospitals, police department, fire department.
And in Colorado, they found that number of fatal accidents have increased considerably because, like with alcohol, we do have a way of testing you whether or not you're able to drive or not.
Your blood alcohol level.
Yeah, but with marijuana, you can't. Back when I was a commander in Germany, I had to go to a seminar, 3-day seminar, and one of the things that this pharmacologist said was that, for 20 years he had people working on his staff that were on marijuana, and he felt that it was not going to be an issue to smoke marijuana, but he says within that 20-year period, everyone went to harder drugs. Mm-hmm. And so he called it a gateway drug. And remember back then, the THC level was, the active component was about 5%. Yeah. And as I understand it right now, the potency of what they're producing today is well over 90%. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a gateway drug, and we don't want to get our kids started on it. And that's one of the things they found in Colorado was that the number of people that were using it at lower ages mushroomed. Mm-hmm. So I think obviously this is something that we got to stop.
Well, they certainly have hybrided it and crossbred it. Mm-hmm. The plant, and so the THC is high.
Food.
And they gummy bears and brown. But here you kind of hit the gateway part, and those who may not have been around for a while. The way I know Harry, for the first time I met you, was during the time when Prescott was known as a rehab capital. And there were
number 3 in the nation.
Yeah, we were like over 200 rehab places here in Prescott. And Harry came up and tapped me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I got a job for you." And thank you for choosing me for being the chairman of the ad hoc committee for sober living. And one of the things that we learned in that committee was, we went out to these different places, was it absolutely was a gateway drug. And so was alcohol. Most of the kids, or when I say kids, I'm adults who are still kids, started using harder drugs from alcohol and marijuana use, and it just progressively got worse. And it was very interesting when I spoke to these people, Harry. Some people smoke marijuana or like drink, and they don't look forward to it, the next day. And others smoke it and can't wait to get it the next day. So it affects people so much differently.
Yeah.
So do we really want to open Pandora's box and allow this to happen through our community, where we have if you learn recreationally, when you go into California, you got little pot shops all over town, and becomes very accessible to the people who may not have tried it to begin with. Not saying that people aren't smoking it now, but I think it would expand the use, the product being out there.
Well, again, what they found in Colorado was the drug cartels now don't want to bring things over the border. They can actually grow it in Colorado.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to go into a home. I can't remember how many plants you could have. It's like 12 or something.
Yeah.
But how many? You'd have to have probable cause to go in a home to find out exactly how many plants they have. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, why would we want to bring the drug cartels here into our country, producing in our country? At least when they're bringing it across the border, there's a greater chance we might detect it and stop it. But when they're in people's homes throughout a state, it's going to be very difficult to stop it.
So the only question I have for the people who support this would be, what good does it bring to your community? And I just don't see it. I mean, again,
it would be a personal
the services and everything else, more than outweigh the tax revenue that comes from it. So as long as we're talking about mandates and all this other stuff, I've been watching the news, and a lot of people, different politicians are talking about these masks. Now, I understand masks are, controversial. Do they work? Don't they work? But some people are actually saying we should mandate masks for everywhere we go in our cities and our places of business, you say?
Well, again, I think this whole thing with coronavirus has been mismanaged. You can probably remember some of the first studies saying that we're going to lose 10 million or 2 million people in a very short period of time from this. And it turned out that, that was substantially overblown. Mm-hmm. People have said that masks are valuable, they work, and then we even had, I think the Surgeon General came out and said you shouldn't be wearing a mask at all. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's been so much misinformation, flip-flopping on policy on this thing, that I think it's very difficult for people to really know what to do.
Sure.
I have seen studies that the cloth masks are not that effective. Basically, the particle size of the virus is small enough that it can pass right through, the membrane of cloth mask. You really need to have the N95 mask. That's what we try and give our first responders and those that are working in hospitals. Whether or not we can provide that to everybody out in the community, I don't know. Again, I feel that I'm more of the person that says it should be personal choice. Mm-hmm. And if you feel that you want to wear it, if you feel that it's going to benefit you, then obviously wear it.
Yeah.
I don't feel that it's beneficial to me. I'm a healthy person. I am over 65, but at the same time,
Barely.
I think one of the things that you look at is a person's health, and if a person has some comorbidities that they would be worried about that might influence how things would turn out for them if they did get coronavirus, obviously then you would definitely want to take precautions. If you do have coronavirus, you shouldn't be out in the public at all.
Right.
So I think it's an issue right now that should come down to personal choice, and I don't think it should be mandated. I think the government is taking on too much responsibility that they don't have the authority to actually enforce.
Well, I'm over 65 too, and I kind of, my choice is I don't want to wear one, but I do believe that there is a virus out there So the 6 foot, and not touching your hands. But what I see a lot of times, Harry, is the people that do have masks, they touch surfaces, and then they're always adjusting that mask, and they're bringing their hand up to their mouth and their nose. And if you know how to spread a virus, that's the way to do it, through your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. So I think there's a lot of, I think it's a placebo event sometimes,
Yes, it is.
with people, but
They think it's really doing them some good. It's interesting. I think in Europe, the distance is 3 feet.
yeah.
So why is it 6 feet, 6 foot here?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
If-
Then you take a look at the Sweden, which basically didn't put any kind of mandates in. And same thing with South Dakota. And they have a very low rate of infection.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a lot more needs to be done to understand this virus and see what precautions we really need to take. And obviously, maybe a vaccine will be produced at some point. I've talked to some people that said, sometimes a vaccine will work on you, but it won't work on me. So how many versions of a vaccine do we need to have?
Yeah.
This could be a while. So
Yeah.
I think we need to get ourselves back to work and take, normal precautions, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, when we look at the effects of what this virus has done, even in our political field, because how many places have you been able to gather and make your speeches, as you're running as a candidate? Yeah, I'm glad to see it's starting to open up a little bit now, so we're able to get out there. So this morning, when I'm having my cup of coffee, I open up the Singles, Arizona, and I see that your rival, who is a Democrat, Lutz, I believe is the way
John
you
Lutz,
made a statement, and he actually wrote an article. I'm not going to read the whole article, but it said at the beginning, I was disturbed to see the images and the angry men in camouflage wearing assault-style weapons on the courthouse square, harassing student-led demonstrations in support of BLM. I was there, Harry. First of all, I didn't see any men in camouflage harassing people. I saw people in camouflage that were standing there, and they did have rifles on them. But I guess my question is, and there was a video put out by one of the local students here. I don't know, were you able to see that?
I saw a portion of one,
Clinton.
yeah. I'm not sure I saw the one you're talking about.
So, and it did portray a lot of angry people. But overall, when I was there, I didn't see that. I saw both sides, back and forth. I did see that. But your take on the situation?
Well, first of all, I wasn't down there. I had a number of events going
I
on.
didn't see Lutz there either, just FYI.
People I know that went down there, they said they didn't see Lutz there, so I guess what he's referring to is maybe you haven't seen this video. Personally, from people I've talked to that were down there, they said they thought, for the most part, it was a very sedate gathering and rally, that people were basically cordial. I guess there was a little section where maybe they had some provocative signs trying to get people to say something, and managed to get somebody to say some maybe inappropriate things. I obviously believe in our First Amendment of free speech, and I think that everybody should have a right to peaceably assemble and voice their concerns and their thoughts. And I think that should be honored by everybody.
Right.
And so I haven't seen Luke's statement, but obviously if he wasn't there, I'm not sure if this is just a political statement that he wants to make. I'm not sure if his background. Somebody told me that he supports Black Lives Matter, so I can understand why he might be making those kind of statements.
Sure. Well, we've talked about our Constitution and our Second Amendment and our First Amendment, and they absolutely do go together. And like I said, I was there. I did see some back and forth, but overall, I saw everyone's right was had the right to do their protests. I saw the police department making sure that even though they were carrying the signs A, B, A, C, all cops are bastards, they were making sure they were safe and they were walking around the square. So again, I saw it on both sides, and I don't think I did see the video, and I don't think it's representative of Arizona, and at least what I saw down there. I think you can edit and make things look any way you want to when it comes to videos. So, I kind of, when I saw the angry men in camouflage, I had to kind of step back, because I think there was angry people on both sides that have been down there. Going on to talking about some of the things that you differentiate with your opponent, one of them is the jail. Now, originally he was in support of not building the jail and the tax, and he's flipped now to he does support the jail and the tax. So where are we on that, Harry? I guess my question.
For myself, of course, I voted it down in 2008. I voted it down in 2014. I'm still against it today. I think based on hearing the Chen report, which was a study that was commissioned by the Board of Supervisors back in 2015, completed in 2016. There was a very thorough analysis done of our justice system here in the jail, and they determined that though it was well run, well managed, they felt that there was a number of areas that we were behind the nation in justice reform. One of the things was to look at pre-adjudication programs and trying to reduce the number of people that are in jail for low-level crimes. One of the things the report said was that the jails are basically for violent criminals until they actually get processed and sent to state prison. So if you got low-level people, low-level crimes, sometimes first time they've ever done it, do we want to go ahead and put them in jail? Maybe they can make bail, maybe they can't. Eventually they may have a felony against them. What's it going to be like for them when they come out to be able to get a job and continue their life? And one of the things this program talked about, or this study talked about, was to try and get people to continue to be a benefit to society while they're waiting for their trial and to be adjudicated on whatever they did. So of the pre-adjudication programs, as I understand at that point, they have none. The county had none. They did have, and they started some post-adjudication. So once you've already been tried, you've been sentenced, you've served your time, then they look at, well, would you benefit from drug rehab or alcohol rehab or something of that nature, and maybe even mental health. Obviously, I was talking to one sheriff's deputy sometime back, and he said he estimated that probably 50% of the people that they arrest have mental health issues. And if that's the case, does it help to put them in jail and give them a felony? Maybe they should have been diverted early on into a program and see how they did on that. And then if they did, first of all, they wouldn't be sitting in our jail. They wouldn't be taking up bed space. So, and it might have been more beneficial for them in the long run.
And a lot of the people that I see comments about, well, where have you been all along? I think a lot of people don't realize that this has been an ongoing issue, and you gave the dates back. Well, I was here in 2016, and I know it was the issue, and it was on a ballot even prior to that, was it not? It was actually the funding on the jail.
Yeah, yeah. It was a quarter cent in 2008 and a quarter cent in 2014. And one of the concerns I had was they said it was going to, they needed about $30 million for the new jail. And the time period that they were going to get the quarter cent was supposed to make them about approximately $70 million. Right. And so one of my concerns, and many other people that I talked to, is, well, why don't you just go ahead and do the quarter cent until you get the jail built? Why do you need another $40 million? Yeah. So I think they didn't do a good job at explaining why they needed it, and that's the reason why it was turned down.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do also about the cost of the jail. $86 million during a COVID economy. I mean, there's a lot of arguments against it, and I'm not so sure that the Board of Supervisors or our current board actually listened to the people. But another question I have is, when you have it, well, let me back up a little bit. So I go by it and I see all the grading going on. Is this issue over with, Harry? I mean, they're already, they're grading the property. is there a chance that this project's going to go no matter what, or can we stop it?
Well, it may, and I do know that one person has looked at establishing a temporary injunction. We'll see how that one proceeds. If I remember correctly, this thing's not going to be built out until sometime in 2022. So there's some period of time in which there's going to be additional contracts have to be let for the actual structure and everything else. So, if we don't get too far down the line and the public does get involved and says, takes a look at this and realizes, this is $86 million, and that's just for the building. It doesn't count the mental health facility. It doesn't count for the maintenance operations and staffing for the facility. When you got Pinal County, they're bigger than us. They only got a 600-person jail, and they're not trying to build one, and we're trying to help 1,200 beds here. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And we talk about rehabs and mental health. When you have a jail in the town, like we'll have it in Prescott or in Prescott, people are arrested, they're brought in here, with these issues. And do you think that will increase the rehabs in our town again, or our mental health facilities in our town? And I'm not saying these people are people that we need to just throw away, but we're bringing a lot of people into our community that have issues, and those issues are going to be addressed by different facilities. Yeah. What guarantee do we have as citizens that we're not going to have issues on our streets?
Well, that, and also if you have Governor Ducey right now saying he's going to close the state prison at Florence, they got 3,600 prisoners there. They probably have enough space in the other state prisons to take about 1,000 of those. Mm-hmm. So he said in his news release that he was going to be looking at county facilities to farm these other folks out to. Now, I hope we don't get any of the high security prisoners, right, but obviously we might get medium security prisoners here. And obviously if they would come here and they're jailed here and then their families move here, it's going to create a lot of issues for us.
Final question. And the primary's over, and I get it, but I want to hear it from you. Your Republican opponent said that you wanted to defund the police department.
Obviously no, because right now the sheriff's department is getting every penny that they ever asked for in the budget. What we're looking at is this the right time and the right place to build this jail? And the jail's going to be in District 1. If I'm going to represent District 1, and I've had a lot of people come to me from District 1 to say they don't think this is right. I've talked to retired police officers, and I said, is this a good place to put this jail? And they said, absolutely not. You would never put it in a residential area or near a residential area. They should be moved much further out. And so I think, the Board of Supervisors should be listening to the public. I think the public should get involved and let the Board of Supervisors know that, this hasn't moved far enough yet to stop it and make the right decision.
Harry, what really bugs me the most is we could talk here for hours about things, and it's always a pleasure having you on the show. And please come back. We'll talk about some more issues, and we'll kind of hit things that we didn't hit. And folks, if you're watching this and you have any comments you want to put in the comment section on questions, next time I have Harry here, I'll make sure that we ask him and try to get a little bit more of a two-way. So to wrap up the show a little bit, Harry, that's your camera. Why don't you go ahead and let the folks know why they should vote for Harry Oberg for District 1 Supervisor.
Well, again, I have a lot of experience in government, having served the military for 33 years. I haven't been mayor here. While I was at the Pentagon, I managed a $1.5 billion budget for the Army on providing logistics for soldiers going to fight in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so I've got the experience to take on this job. Obviously, what I did as a mayor translates directly to what I would do as a supervisor. So would hope that you would take that in consideration and vote for me on 3 November.
Oh, great. Thank you again, Harry. And a couple announcements I want to put out. Highway 69 Republicans, you're meeting on September 30th at the Prescott Valley Library in the Crystal Room, and that will be from 6 p.m. to 8. Also, Oath Keepers and Yavapai County Preparedness Team, you will be meeting on Saturday the 26th at the First Baptist Church in Chino Valley, and the address there is 1524 North State Route 89 in Building C. And the general meeting usually starts at 2 o'clock, and if you're interested in any of the teams, they start anywhere from 12 o'clock to 12:30. I believe the medical team starts at 12. Home medicine, radio starts at 12:30. So if you haven't checked out one of those meetings, you might want to. The time grows near sometimes, Harry. I'm in fear of what's happening to our country and in our area, and I think the community just needs to be ready for whatever happens. You know,
I agree.
I was telling my wife I bought some extra canned goods, and I said, hopefully we'll just have to eat that later on. You know, we won't really need it. So anyway, I always wrap the show up with thanking our current serving and prior serving military. Thank you so much for allowing us to be able to have the freedoms to sit at the table. Thank you, Harry, for your service as well. Again, you know, combat veteran, Vietnam 2 tours, and Purple Hearted. So Harry Oberg, certainly when he talks about the Constitution, he's put it all out there on line 2, preserve our Constitution. I always thank our law enforcement and our firefighters for keeping our streets safe, and we have your back, and we'll hold the line right behind you. So again, so appreciative of all you men and women out there on our streets. And with that, this show will air sometime later on this week, but I've got another one coming up, which is going to be really cool. We went out to Gun Sight, and I think you're going to enjoy that one. That'll probably be next week when that airs. So until then, Prescott, have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you.